London with Kamran Moazami, the director of WSP Cantor Sinek here in London, and you've been an observer on the London scene for 20 years now. This is a very exciting place to be. What's your observation of what's happened in London in the last 20 years with tall buildings?
When we started 1989, tall building in London, because of the bad experience of the past 70s, was like a no-go. And gradually, people realized that by building great building, by building iconic building, and the right building for a city like London, it could save infrastructure, it could create volume. And with the present urbanization growth and people moving into the cities, it is the way to the future. And London adopted to that requirement. I mean, if you go to, if you were in London 84, 85, there was no very few tall building, and not great looking tall building. But now, if you go through London, you see all kind of fantastic, great looking buildings that are tall, like the Shard of Glass, or the Swiss Re Tower, or the Cheese Grater, or the Leadenhall Tower that's going up right now, or the One Canada Square, the first one in the Dockland. So it gradually grew through using it first in the Dockland, showing people that it could be great and it could be a fantastic a space for people. It could save infrastructure. It will avoid sprawl of the cities. And
what you were referring to, though, as far as bad experiences in the past with high rises, I'm told that this is a byproduct of all of the public housing that occurred in Britain, and that's where that came from, the aversion to high rises. Are we starting to see a change in attitudes in London?
I mean, as you could see, nowadays many new projects get planning, and many tall buildings get planning. I mean, let's say about 1995, 96, even early 2000, there was a reluctant to give planning to tall building. But now, by people seeing buildings that are going up, by seeing how great they could be, by seeing how a building could be part of a city, could invite people into it, like the Shard. You could be actually part of that building. You could go into the building. You could go to the top of the building. You could go to the restaurant. And a building like Shard totally regenerate an area like the London Bridge Quarter, and transform it from a node place to a destination place. And so by people seeing this and see the evolution of the tall building, how it convert the area, how it becomes an iconic part of the city, I think that it changed. It's like everything else. You gotta get to use to do it, so people see that it could be done a lot better, and it could be done to become part of the life of the people in a city, and then they'll adapt. And that's how Londoners have adopted to it. And they're more pro-tall building than let's say, year 2000.
There is such a design variety growing up in the financial district, where you have so many different shapes and sizes, and it's really quite spectacular to look at. Are you kind of surprised that something like that grew up in kind of conservative London? Is that a signature of the city now?
Well, London architecture, it was all about the old and the new. It's about the heritage of the past and the heritage of the future. And it's about our generation now creating. So it's a mixture of that. It's a great contrast of buildings right next to a Victorian style architecture, and show how our generation and past generation can show their presence. I mean, if you look at some of the picture of the Shard with St. Paul right in front of it, some people used to criticize it. But when I look at it, and I say, that is our gift to this generation, and St. Paul was the gift of the past generation to London. So I think it's part of the architecture. If you have great architectures, which, I mean, plenty of them in UK and in London, you could create buildings that they are special, they are sustainable, they are economical, and actually economically viable.
I wanted to talk about some of the different designs, the shapes that we're seeing here and the purposes behind them. If this is maybe becoming a signature of the London style, specifically the One Blackfriars project, where you have this tapering design, I guess, to allow better sight distance at street level. Is that right? And some of the bulk of the building is going higher up.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I mean, I think Ian Simpson is better placed to answer this question, but because he's the architect. But first of all, structures need to be iconic when it's at that height, because it attracts attention. People, whether you want it or you don't want it, you want to look at them. You want to see what they are all about. And so the sculpture of the building, I think, to me, was the main incentive for Ian to come up with the design. But then, yes, absolutely, at the base of the building, you wanted to make sure that the building is not dominant, and you wanted to open up the public realm. You want to make sure that you walk around the building, and you didn't want to bring the mass of the building hitting the ground. So by tapering shape and sculpting it at the bottom, it allows the people to walk through it and to open up their space at the base, and at the same time, it makes the building less dominant at the ground level.
Take us into the future. In 20 years from now, where do you see London? What kind of projects are we going to see springing up here?
I think you'll see different architecture. You see new generation coming up with different ideas. But I personally think that the era of this sculpture design is really past a little bit, because you needed that for London to get the people to welcome the tall building. But now it's more about designing buildings that are more economically viable. I mean, they have to be architectural pleasing, but at the same time they need to be economically viable. You have to use the least amount of material, which is engineer the building to what it does, to how it performs. That's what the concentration is. So our concentration is to minimize the embodied energy, which is the cost of material in the building. So it's going to be a lot about sustainability of the building and how economical the building is, and how much you could get out of the building. You will work, I mean, the technology is going to move on. Right now, for instance, we're using, let's say, maximum C80 80 MPa concrete on the building. I'm sure throughout the years, by the development of the technology, we would use higher strength concrete and higher strength steel. So you could go higher. As I said earlier, because of urbanization and because of to avoid sprawl of the cities, tall buildings are the future. So you will see taller and taller buildings, in my opinion.
Kamran Moazami, thanks for dropping by to see us in London.
Thank you.